So I tried out Monster Hunter Wilds on Linux, and right off the bat, it does work. Overall, the performance is pretty good, basically on par with Windows. There are 3 main downsides that I noticed. The 1% lows, otherwise known as lag spikes or frame drops, are more frequent and harsher. My guess is this is likely due to Vulkan shaders. Owning an NVIDIA GPU, there's no Linux version of NVIDIA overlay, so recording and shutupplay have to be done otherwise. In my case, I tried OBS, but it did not get good results. So just keep that in note. All the gameplay you see in this video is on Linux, but because I had to use OBS, it did highly impact my performance when recording, but otherwise when not recording, it looks vastly different than this. There are going to be additional visual glitches that just do not happen in Windows. I'm going to sprint through what I had to do to get this working, give a guide as well as some advice. I also made a basic HTML website that will organize this in a tutorial style format in case you wanted to follow along. So with enthusiasm for Windows dropping down in recent years, as well as me just having a spare hard drive laying around, I decided I may as well give Linux a try. I tried Linux a long time ago and had a lot of personal issues with it, but recently I heard about Linux Mint and decided to take a look. First piece of advice, if you're even thinking about this, I would not partition a single hard drive that has Windows already installed on it. When I was doing my research, I found a lot of threads running into issues where Windows would update and it would break their entire Linux partition. So just go ahead and be smart and use a separate hard drive. The first step is just to choose your Linux distribution that you want to install. In this video, I'm going to be using Linux Mint. If you've ever installed an OS before, this will be extremely easy for you. All you have to do is format the USB with the installer, install it on the hard drive, and then boom, you're done. I'll have some links on the website just in case you wanted to install Linux Mint, but it was honestly super easy. So one of the first steps you want to do when you first install Linux Mint is go to the driver manager. I believe it's pre-installed. If you just open up this piece of software, then you'll just be able to update your GPU drivers. It really is that easy. I have an NVIDIA graphics card, but if you have an AMD graphics card, I believe it works the same exact way. If that doesn't work, then I also have a link on the website to walk through various ways to install the NVIDIA drivers, and I did have one issue upgrading one time, but just going through the various different ways to install it, you'll resolve it pretty easily. From this point, it's honestly really easy to get Monster Hunter Wilds up and running. First thing to do is open up the software manager and then just simply install Steam. Next, what will happen is Steam already has some downloads queued for you, one of them being Proton. Proton is the compatibility layer that allows these games developed for Windows to be actually run in Linux systems. I think by default there will be an experimental version for download, but you can also choose to download a hard-coded version. Once Proton is installed, then you'll be able to install Monster Hunter Wilds, and then once you launch it the first time, or actually a few times after that, it'll compile the Vulkan shaders. So why, Guitar Slugger, are you even making this video? Up until this point, this only took me maybe a few hours to accomplish. This was actually easier than doing it on Windows. Here's the thing. I wanted to get ReFramework and ReShade working together. I found separate solutions on how to get these working individually, but to get these two working together, I had to do a little tiny trick that I'll share with you guys throughout the rest of this video. So you'll have to download ReFramework. You can go to the Monster Hunter Wilds Nexus and then just download the mod. You'll get the dinput8.dll file, and then you can just drop that into your installation folder, and you can find that by right-clicking on your game in Steam and then do Browse Local Files. So hold on 1 second there, we're not quite done yet. Still in Steam, right click on the game and go to Properties. In the General tab, copy the following launch options, which you can grab from the website. You will notice mine are different. This is because of what I had to do to get ReShade working. I would recommend watching at least a little bit of the ReShade section because it is an insanely good visual tool. I will also explain the launch option variable syntax a bit more there, if you're a nerd. If, for whatever reason, your ReFramework doesn't work, you can always go to the nightly releases and then scroll down to the Monster Hunter Wilds, unzip that, and then you'll eventually find the DLL file that you can install. So Fluffy Mod Manager is pretty easy to get running. You right click, extract it, however you do it. I extracted it here, and all you have to do is run it through Wine. So what you can do is open terminal. If you don't have Wine installed, then you can do sudo apt install wine. I already have it installed, so it won't show up there. And all you have to do is sudo wine mod manager exe. So wine, if you don't know, will help you execute Windows programs. So it allows you to run Fluffy. You're gonna have to go in and select Monster Hunter Wilds from the list. It'll ask you the list when you first open up Fluffy, then you'll just select Monster Hunter Wilds. And then it's as simple as just adding your mods to the mod folder and then installing them. It's basically the same as what you would do in Windows. So ReShade is basically a way where you can apply visual filters or even like post-processing to your visuals. I think it's an incredibly useful tool in Monster Hunter Wilds, and I'll just be showing stuff on screen right here so that you can actually see the differences. So to get ReShade working in Linux, I went to this GitHub repo. Installing is actually super easy. You just open up a terminal, execute this curl command to download it, and then change it to be executable, and then just execute the script. So after you install it for the game, you'll get the ReShade shaders folder, and inside of that there'll be a merge folder, and then inside of that there'll be textures and shaders. Inside of these folders is where you would place any shaders or textures that you haven't installed already. I did this by accessing this GitHub repo using the navigation to find whichever one I needed, in this case the colorfulness, and then downloaded that and manually placed it inside of the shaders folder. Go ahead and copy paste whichever launch options you need, whether you have ReFramework and or ReShade installed. So I'm going to take a quick second here and explain these. So the first thing is these optional arguments. These are meant to make the game run a little bit faster. I honestly don't really know what they do, but you can add them, it won't really harm anything. The next is the wind DLL overrides. So this variable is set to a string, and inside of this string is different values that you are passing into this variable. And the way this is interpreted is based on this separator, this delimiter, which is the semicolon. So you'll see that the value for the ReFramework is this DLL, D input DLL and comma B. So you can paste that in here, separate it by the delimiter, and then you can also paste in the ReShade options here. So you have the ReShade options here, and you can just paste that right in here. So that will be separated by this delimiter. As you can see, this is the delimiter right here for the ReShade stuff. And then you will also always need this command. This just executes the actual game launch. So you'll need that. So that's a quick overview. It's really easy. It's just variable stuff. So that's it. And there we go, we have Monster Hunter Wilds up and running with mods and visual processing. If you don't care about replays or recording, you can skip to the conclusion section. I'm going to just quickly go through this section. I'm still testing everything out. So first you want to download OBS. You can do that through the software manager, or you can do that through the command line. Once installed, access the settings and then update the output bit rate. Next, you set up a replay buffer. I set mine to 3 minutes and to use 4 GB of memory. Then you go to your hotkeys. You can set up hotkeys for recording, but also set a hotkey to start the buffer, as well as a hotkey to record that replay buffer. That's honestly all I currently have for setting up OBS. I'm still working on it at the moment, but you can also look into setting up and separating out the audio channels. So this might be the longest section of the video, which is partially a good thing. Overall, setting up Linux and then Wilds and then its tertiary components was much easier than I thought it was going to be. If you're watching this, then there's a good chance that you're curious about the Linux experience. Overall, it's a good experience, and the more I use it, the more it's growing on me. I would say if you're on the fence about it and you're tech savvy and you have a spare hard drive, there's no reason to not go ahead and try it out. Otherwise, I'm not sure if you should do it. If you're looking to completely replace Windows, I don't think that's a great idea. Or also, if you're not tech savvy, I would not recommend jumping into this. As for Wilds, if you're looking to do this for a trick to get better performance, this is not the way to do it at all. A little bit of context around this. I started this around the end of Title Update 3. My first impression is I was not happy with this at all, so I ended up just putting this off. Then when Title Update 4 came around, I started updating some more things. Running Wilds on Windows, I got about 5 to 10% better performance on average. But after Title Update 4 with my Linux performance, it increased drastically to the point where I actually might just start playing it mainly on this operating system. Initially in Title Update 3 with my 3080 and with OBS open specifically, I was getting like 30 FPS all the time. But then with Title Update 4, I'm getting mid 50s with OBS open. So keep in mind, OBS is really tanking my FPS. If you're looking to do this with Wild specifically, I would also recommend at least 10 gigabytes of VRAM. And honestly, that might shoot up to 12 gigabytes if you're trying to use OBS in the background. So it's just another consideration, another factor before you move over to Linux. Another option you can try is a Linux distribution called Bazite. It's more guided around a user-friendly experience. I believe it's kind of modeled off of the Steam OS or like forked off of it. I'm not exactly sure, but it's a lot less command line stuff and more just like packaged all together. Another cool advantage I specifically had was I have both of my hard drives in the same computer for my Windows and my Linux, and I ended up formatting a hard drive that can work across both of them, so I can dump files onto that hard drive from either operating system and then access them from the other operating system. If you do the same sort of setup, then I would highly suggest formatting a third hard drive to be exFAT, and then that way you can just dump files from either operating system and access them freely. So Linux is kind of a build your own experience. Funnily enough, going through the forums of previous Linux users to get certain things working kind of feels like Expedition 33. These poor souls would have to figure out how to configure and install things to help those who come after. And the problem is, eventually you'll find yourself on the expedition. Since Linux isn't ubiquitous, there will be an edge case that you will probably have to figure out mostly on your own. And that's even if there's a chance of conquering it in the first place. And that's the real downside of Linux. For me, that expedition was DaVinci Resolve. This is my primary form of video editing and I could not get it working. I tried so many videos and I eventually got it running, but it was not able to read any of my existing video files. And that was a pretty big letdown for me. So that's another huge consideration before you move over to Linux. Just make sure every piece of software that you use, you double check and make sure there's a Linux version of it. Overall, I'm liking Linux more and more each day. I hope the support around it does improve. I could see myself using this as my primary OS or even leaving Windows altogether, but that likely won't be happening anytime soon. In the meantime, however, I'm going to keep tinkering with it.